Good morning. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. Todd Bayruter won't be in today. He is Washington, D.C. and some meetings. So one of the council members attending the committee may need to volunteer and be a chair for today's meeting. And I hope we'll have a quorum and we can get some work done. And so far, I see only, oh, okay, Damon, Tom. I hope you guys won't fight who will be the chair for today.
Want to arm wrestle, Tom?
Well, I don't think we need to. Yeah, Micah just trying to introduce.
I think we have 7 or 8 members of this committee, Stoyan.
We have 8 members of this committee, but Representative Ramo, he is an ex officio, he is not a voting member.
Okay, so we need 4 for a quorum.
We need 4 for a quorum, yes.
Well, I see 3. I guess we could give it a moment and see if someone else jumps on.
This is Annette, and I just Todd, Shell, and Jay all declined for other reasons. They were not going to be able to make it today. Just to let you know.
Okay, thank you. And Annette, was there who's our 7th member then?
Matthew.
Okay. I didn't see Matthew in the last meeting either.
And I did not get a response, so I don't.
Okay.
Okay.
Tom or Micah, you want to be the guest chair today?
Well, David, you've got considerable experience as chair in the other forums. It doesn't really matter to me.
I'll go ahead and, if there's no objections, I'll go ahead and act as chair. So welcome everybody to the Thursday, February 8th Legislative Committee meeting. I'm David Doyle, council chair and your acting chair of this meeting. Other council members want to go ahead and introduce themselves?
Yeah, my name's Tom Handy. I'm representing the Washington Association of Counties on the east side of the state. I'm Whitman County Commissioner.
Oh, wonderful. Micah?
Thank you. Micah Chappelle, Technical Code Development Manager for Seattle's Department of Construction and Inspections, and I represent code officials on the SBCC. Thanks for having me.
Micah, are you actually in an office today?
Yeah, I've been coming to the office last few weeks. So
Wonderful.
yeah, good times.
Yeah.
We come into the office to have Zoom meetings. Go figure.
that's today's reality. Would the other folks in the room like to go ahead and introduce yourselves? Feel free to unmute and jump in. Are they able to unmute themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And not everybody's jumping at once. So is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Well, we don't have a quorum actually, and we can't vote on anything, unfortunately.
Okay.
Well, it's
Well,
not that this committee votes a lot, but
right. So I know that we got a couple bills moved yesterday. Stoyan, you want to just give us a brief update?
yes, it was a busy day yesterday, and I didn't send you any report because I kept chasing changes to bills and other stuff. But what I can do, I can show the cutoff calendar. Just give me a second. Okay, so today is February 8th. Here is where we are. The previous cutoff was on 5th, and I will show you the bills that are still alive. And the next one is 13th, which will be the last day to consider bills in house of origin. And when I show you the bills, you will see which ones are not. Okay, so these are the bills that are still moving, and you will see here the list seems kind of fat because bills that were introduced the last session last year and they were dead last year, well, they were reintroduced and some of them are still moving. So on this list, I highlighted a few that I felt maybe with maybe interesting for you, and I can add some more details, but I don't have the summaries as you saw the last time. But I'm prepared to talk about this bill, and I'm sure you folks are also following this. This 1105, this is related to public comment notices, requires agencies to provide notices for public comments that includes the last day by which such public comment must be submitted. I think we are doing this under one form or another, but we're good with that. So you see most of these bills are monitoring because they have nothing to do with the State Building Code Council or medium or low. This lived experience you see as medium. How it was introduced, it was really challenging for the council to comply with it, but the bill was amended several times, so currently it doesn't apply to the State Building Code Council. And this bill, the diaper changing stations, it was high priority for us because it required the council, the original bill, it required the council to adopt some standards for diaper changing stations, but now the council was removed from the bill, so it's not affecting the council. 2071, this is the bill that I think Micah likes to talk about, and it also was modified. And Micah is here if he wants to talk about it. But I know Micah had some concerns, and I saw some of these concerns were taken care of. My concern was the effective date, and you see the effective date was changed to November 1st, 2026. So thanks to Representative Duer and members of the committee in the House that made this change. Micah, yeah.
Yeah, Micah, go ahead.
Yeah, this overall is a good bill. I think I've said that before, but there are some concerns. I know that the fire marshals, Washington Association of Fire Marshals, set something out recently, and that it only has a may consider life and safety systems in inclusion in this instead of shall. So they're having an issue with that because what this will do, and the intent is to eliminate sprinklers or the requirement for fire sprinklers from 6-unit buildings. So there's some concern there. And then, of course, one item that's been continually ignored is the accessibility item, and that this will reduce accessible units. And that
Micah, sorry to cut you off. Apologize, but I think, Sira, I will highlight this. So it's must consider. It was changed, I think, with the striker. So the accessibility is there, and may is now must consider the life and safety systems and accessibility requirements for
exactly. It says the tag must consider those, but they're not required to be included. That's the concern. Okay. Their argument is there's something in the legislature that says, hey, if the tag decides to get rid of these, they can, or if the SBCC decides to get rid of these, they can, and that is the issue. They want shall include, not a we're going to strike this stuff if we see fit. That's the concern from the fire marshal's standpoint that I read in an email. Wasn't something that I'm speaking for them. I just read their email. That's the same thing with us. It's well, we can consider it, but we don't have to include it. And that's again, could be an issue. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying what they're talking about. Again, I'm for this bill. I think we ought to go further than this bill. And that we should include probably up to 12 units, 3 to 12 units, and create its own code for those types of structures. So
I'm actually looking at the substitute bill right now, and line 5, page 2 says must consider the life safety systems and accessibility requirements.
right. I agree. It says must consider, but again, that's not a must include or must have or shall have. They just have to consider it.
I know. Yeah.
That's it.
Okay,
Good times.
If you-
This is the language from the substitute. I did copy paste last night. So
okay, yeah,
what Diamond was saying, yeah, it's right here if you can see it.
okay. Well, and I think we could probably safely assume that the tag and certainly the council would be sure to include those portions. Go ahead and move on to the next one if you would.
So this is highlighted because it's not really the council shall do something, but it's involves the State Building Code Council somehow. Nothing that the council needs to do right now, but I can open it.
So it looks like this pertains to functional recovery after earthquakes or tsunamis.
Yes. So again, military department, but at the end of the bill, so the military department is required to conduct a study. I will save the details, but in conducting the study, the military department must request input from the State Building Code Council, and then further the report must also include policy recommendations relating to statewide building code standards for functional recovery. So it indirectly involves the State Building Code Council, but not.
Okay.
This is why I included it. If you have, I don't know, comments or questions.
Mhm.
Should I move further?
Oh, please do. Yeah, I'm waiting to get down to the two hot ones. So-
Yep. Okay. So here is the first one, HB 2452. This is related to manufactured housing. The question is, does the State Building Code, Washington State Building Code apply to manufactured homes? I coordinated with Dirk. I have his opinion. I collected some other information. I will send this information to the council members to discuss for the council during the council meeting. And I know Micah was referring to RCW 1927-560. Based on the conversation and based on the opinions I got from a few attorneys, it doesn't appear that the State Building Code Council has any authority over these manufactured homes. So this bill requires the council to adopt an exception for manufactured homes, and legally the issue was, can the council exempt something that's not required in the code? And again, I have the information, but because it was provided under attorney-client communication, I can't share the entire email, but I will have information for the council members for the meeting next week. I communicated with WABO about this bill. I communicated with what was this association of housing, the folks that are the association of the manufactured homes. I can't remember their title. So this is what I have so far.
Have you by chance reached out to the bill sponsors?
Not to the legislators, no, but I think DES follow the message.
Okay. Okay, go ahead and move on to the next.
So this is the State Building Code Council bill, and this is the Senate bill. 6291 passed the Senate 47-2, 47 votes yes, 2 votes no. 2465 is not. It's still in the House. What I saw from the Senate bill, it was amended, so now the language between these two bills is close. It was there were some big differences. Now it's close. Haven't talked to the sponsors recently, and believe me or not, I spoke with Micah the last time. It was a friendly conversation. I tried to answer his questions, and he will say if I successfully did that. But and I'm ready to answer your questions now, and I will do the same at the council meeting with the detail here that I, didn't provide all the language, so I can't answer all questions, but I'll do my best to the best of my understanding to explain the intent.
Micah, I think your primary concern, if I recall last time, was what happened if we didn't meet the timeline? And, would we end up having to skip a code cycle? If I'm paraphrasing correctly, go ahead and respond if you would.
Yeah, that's still a question. I don't think we'll skip a code cycle, but it may occur. I think we could skip a code cycle if the council voted on it anyway, so it's probably not relevant. So I don't think that's as big an issue. I think the 30-month timeline will still work. As long as we take action, is what Stoyan was indicating, and that action could be we're going to delay it, we're going to do something else, but we're taking an action towards adoption. So that section is fine. My bigger concern this go round, and Stoyan and I talked about this, and Stoyan did indicate there was a mistake in some language in there, and I have a bigger question on it, and that is the off-cycle rule. Stoyan indicated in our discussion that there should have been an inclusion of similar language for the emergency rule where 2/3 majority could move an off-cycle rule forward. Because right now off-cycle rules are going to be prohibited by this legislation unless they are initiated and directed by the legislature.
Right.
So
or by emergency rule.
Or by emergency. And see, I don't see that in here. And that's where I kind of am questioning that. It doesn't say that off-cycle rules can be initiated by emergency rule unless that's something new. And that is the question. Go ahead, Stoyan. I can expand on it, but
there is a reference. So when you let me go to section.
It'll be page 3. Okay.
1.5. So petitions for emergency statewide amendments to the building code may be submitted, considered, and adopted at any time in accordance with RCW 3405-350. So 3405-350 is in the Administrative Procedures Act, and the emergency rule is effective for 120 days. The mandatory for the council is to run an off-cycle rule and finish the emergency rule, or extend the 120 days until the off-cycle rule is completed. So it's connected by default. You can't adopt something with emergency rule temporarily, permanently. I'm sorry. It needs to go through an off-cycle rule. That was the intent. This is why you didn't see any connection between the emergency and off-cycle. The intent was 3405 will take care of that. Again, I don't know successfully or not, but that's any emergency rule will need an off-cycle rule. If it's an emergency, then it's not a permanent adoption. It's an emergency because we can't spend the time required under the Administrative Procedures Act. So it's effective immediately after filed with the Code Revisor's Office. And then we have 120 days to complete the off-cycle rule.
Aren't there some emergency rules, however, that simply time out? You can
There
only,
are some, yes, there are some that are timed out.
and we're limited to one extension with an emergency rule as well, correct?
That's debatable. I think we're not. If we are working on this, we're not limited to 120 days only. But we need to readopt it if we are working on permanent adoption.
So Stoyan, can we get that interpretation in writing? Because I would interpret that differently. And just looking at the RCW 3505-350 in item 2, in item 2, I agree with Damon on this. It says 120 days after filing. It's in effect for no longer than 120 days. It says identical or substantially similar emergency rules may not be adopted in sequence unless conditions have changed or the agency has filed notice of its intent to adopt the rule as a permanent rule.
Yes,
according to what this legislation says, again, you're interpreting here, and I don't read it the same way.
No, that's not my interpretation. That's what the attorneys were saying to me in the last.
And again, okay, the interpretation that we're hearing from counsel, which I'd like to get in writing, is that an off-cycle rule can be done if it first starts as an emergency. The legislation does not say that. It says any off-cycle permanent rulemaking shall be initiated or implemented by the legislature only. It doesn't say unless it's an emergency rule or if you follow an emergency rule. You don't have to go into rulemaking on an emergency rule unless you intend to make it permanent. And we're not allowed to do permanent based on the legislation. So again, they're, in my opinion, in my interpretation and others, that's in conflict. Now, if the Attorney General says, hey, we're going to interpret it this way, that's great. We would like to have that interpretation in writing. Because right now, that legislation doesn't say that. That's an interpretation. It's not what the legislation says. And those are different things. Which we're okay with an interpretation. We would just like to see that in writing that says this is the intent here, because there's nothing in legislative intent writings. There's nothing else. Right now, it says no off-cycle rules unless done by the legislature. Emergency, whether they start with an emergency or not. That's an interpretation. Thanks.
I will discuss with Dirk. I can't promise anything because, I'm not his boss, but I assume he will help us out. So I'll have this information available ASAP.
It would have been nice to have you do what you had indicated and get the 2/3 vote for off-cycle rules, and not that they have to start as an emergency rule. That would have been great to get that support, but it doesn't look like it's going to occur.
Well, that's out of my hands now.
Yeah,
I get the concern. I understand it. I mean, again, Mike and I, we talked in peace, so I think I get what he's saying.
Well, and again, we've got until next week to get any amendments in here. I don't know if the House bill has the same language.
Regarding the emergencies and
off-cycle, yeah.
Yes, it's the same language.
Okay,
it's the same. And I was planning to raise this concern during the council meeting as well. So we checked in the last 10-15 years, and I wasn't here, but I used Christo's expertise, and what we were able to identify as an important off-cycle rule that started with emergency was the tsunami, the tsunami effort. And again, I wasn't here before, so I may be wrong. I don't know, but that standed up what we've done, and we've done many emergencies and off-cycle rules. So when we have identified an additional cycle for cleanup, I'm judging by experience. So it's important and if we add an off-cycle rule, so it's important what is the understanding that the council members will have regarding those cycle rules. So I'll give you an example. So we have 2024 code adopted, and then after 12 months, the council decides, hey, again, if this bill gets enacted, after 12 months, the council decides, hey, we missed so much stuff, like we have section renumbering, we have some editorial problems, and we screwed up an important language, something like that. And then we open the process for intervening or interim cycle, and somebody introduces, hey, there is a language that was adopted in 2027. Let's adopt the entire 2027 code. This is what I was afraid of. This is why I proposed this interim cycle to be limited and not follow the same process. It's just a cleanup cycle that will give the code users some certainty that there won't be anything new that will cost them money, or there won't be anything new that they won't have time for training. So I'm not against it. I just don't know how to limit what the council can do. And then I don't want to require, and I can't require the council to do anything. I'm just throwing this for discussion purposes.
Micah?
Yeah, I just kind of want to, I appreciate Story meeting with me, but it's unfortunate that I hear the words limit on the State Building Code Council, especially when the legislation says that the State Building Code Council shall adopt and amend and review these things. And some off-cycle rules are pertinent. The ESS stuff, although it was a big off-cycle rule, that is important to the first responders. And some of those things across the country are actually being pushed through legislation because of the importance. But this could, again, I've mentioned this before, I'm not necessarily against this bill, but some of these things in here could, put a chilling effect on moving code amendments forward, even if they're important, because there wouldn't be a path to do so any longer, regardless of how important they are, other than it rising to an emergency rule, which now is going to have, of course, much more scrutiny. And it's just it's not a bad bill. It just puts some limitations that I don't believe were necessary in legislation. And of course, that's my opinion, and maybe that's others. But again, everything at this point that's important would have to rise to an emergency. And if it doesn't, it dies until the next cycle. I don't know if that's a good path either, but we're going to find out.
Just if number 6 were amended to say initiated and implemented at any time if directed by the legislature or a 2/3 vote of the state building code council, would that suffice?
Absolutely. And I mentioned that to Stoyan, and that was something Stoyan indicated should have been in there. And he actually, I appreciate him saying that was his fault and it should have occurred. So I appreciate Stoyan's support on that. I believe he said that, and yes, I think it would be a great addition. So yeah.
And do you think it should be a 2/3 level or a majority?
I'm okay with the 2/3. I think that would show the level of importance for these things. And if it doesn't reach that 2/3, then maybe it's not as important as the proponent believes. So I agree with that.
Craig, you had your hand up for a moment.
I did. I think you covered it. And between Micah and you, Mr. Doyle, and Stoyan is right. There's been a long history when there's been the need for emergency rulemaking, but I'm satisfied with what I overheard you in your comments as to maybe the way you can get the language to go.
Yeah, and again, it's not the emergency. It's just simply off cycle. So,
if I can follow up on Micah's, so I said I can't, and I don't want to limit the council. I just want to raise the concern, and I want to introduce my point of view, because the council directed me to publish the codes, and this is what I'm doing right now. I'm working on it, and I intentionally pointed out to the council members understanding what is important and what is not, because and this is when the term limit came up. So we are publishing code. And I used this example before, we want to be consistent with the time frame. Okay, here is when you can do that. Here is when you can do that. And our stakeholders and code users will understand when they need to watch out for something. Damon, I hear too many complaints from the building industry that we're having too many changes to the codes and they don't have time to catch up. And that's a real concern I see. Mike, I hear a lot from building officials getting upset with me and the council because we have too many changes. Of course, everybody has, there are different opinions. Everybody has an opinion with that, and I appreciate everybody. I just trying to introduce my point of view, and I'm not against anything. I need a time frame in order to negotiate a contract with ICC and IAPMO and assure that we can stay within this time frame and not make changes every month. That's my point of view stuff, because when the council votes on something, then my work starts. And if I can't control the schedule, then I'm failing with my work and the SBCC stuff as well. I don't want to open a war between the managing director and the council. It has no logic behind it. Yeah, but I just want to put on the table for discussion my concerns.
I think that's well understood, Micah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention too that the off-cycle rule intent as well is not just to add to the code. It could be to remove items, which we only have one opportunity to remove items based on section 4 that you actually have on the screen here. And that's during the interim code adoption cycle, which is a specific timeline between, I think it's 6 and 18 months or 8 and 18 months, something like that. So again, if something came up for permanent rulemaking, even if it is to remove unnecessary regulation, we don't have the opportunity to do that except once during that code cycle. So again, it's not just to add stuff to the code. I don't want folks to think all Micah wants to do is only add stuff to the code. There are times where removing things that are unnecessary during more than just that one time would be beneficial. And if the whole council votes to do so, or at least the majority, as we've indicated, that would be fabulous. So thanks.
Okay. Any more comments on this particular bill? Obviously it'll be heard again in an opposite committee. So yeah.
Just real quick,
Craig,
Mr. Chair, Craig Stevenson, ICC. Yeah, long before many of you were on this council, we had the station nightclub fire, excuse me, and it took quite a little bit of emergency rulemaking because the legislature directed certain things to happen with sprinklered nightclubs. They directed that in a bill. It preceded some of the requirements that got in the ICC code. The ICC code then conflicted after it did come out with what the legislature said. And there was quite a little process of back and forth and rulemaking that rose to the level of emergency. That's just one example to emphasize that Mr. Chappelle's comment is absolutely right. Sometimes it's needed, and it's more important so that you no longer are requiring something or leaving something that's extremely confusing that makes the enforcement of what the intent of the legislature, and if that could be given in testimony, the intent of the legislature sometime needs this element to preserve the ability to change at a mid-level cycle. And that's really the only times I've seen that it really has been used. Thank you for letting me comment.
Absolutely. Thank you for your history on that, Greg. Okay, Stoyan, let's go ahead and move on to the next thing on the list of bills. The WUI passes. Oh, go ahead.
So we have this kid home thing that was introduced last year. It died, and it surprised me yesterday to see that it was still moving. So kid homes, here is the definition for kid homes. This is the exception that says less than 800 square feet on private property, or exempt from compliance with the building code, subject to permitting by incorporated cities and towns and fire safety regulations. I raised the same concern last year. I talked to LNI and they said they're not responsible for these kid homes. They don't do inspections. They don't do their insignias. I disagreed back then. I disagree now, but it's not important if I agree or disagree. The truth is that we'll have these kid homes built somewhere in China, Vietnam, wherever it is, I don't know, and they will be assembled on a job site without any. We don't know what is in the enclosed wall. We don't know what is in the plumbing core. We don't know the size of pipe. We don't know the size of wire. This bill doesn't require the State Building Code Council to do anything, but as it is shown right now, but I just raised technical concerns.
Interesting. Okay, thank you. Tom?
Yeah. Sorry, I guess I was already unmuted. So I got a quick question about that. I haven't read this one. Does some of those come without any substantial plumbing and or electrical in them? Would they still be required to have inspections on things added to them, or does it totally exempt anything associated with them?
Well, they're exempt from compliance with the building code, but for right here, this is the text, subject to permitting by incorporated cities or towns and local fire safety regulations. So I can't say that there won't be any standards, but again, my concern was about these concealed spaces. You get a SIP panel, or you get the wall that you can install, and everything is concealed, everything is enclosed. You can't inspect it. That was my concern. So when last year the bill was introduced, I attended one of the hearings, and the sponsor said that the kit homes will be prefabricated at the factory, and they will comply with the building codes, but the bill doesn't specify that.
Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, we've been following this one pretty closely here in the city of DuPont, and we were a little concerned with placement regulations and also WUI regulations. Would the owner be responsible? I mean, we're just having a hard time with it, telling someone they got to do a defensible space or do all this, but you can put this home anywhere you want on your property. So that's our concerns currently. But yeah, this one's tricky.
Reading the bill report, they were hearkening back to the old, the Sears Craftsman houses that they shipped out between the 20s and 40s. And there's a ton of them here in Olympia, oddly enough. Craig,
There's also a bunch of these fold-out container homes that are hitting the market too, that are.
Yeah, I guess I always had the assumption they were governed under factory-built structures. But I guess if you're getting a complete unit from out of the country, then potentially they're not. Craig, did you have a comment?
Yes, this is the same type of issue that's going on currently in Hawaii with the rebuild for Lahaina. Is there can be these things that come in, and what standard do they meet? And even the governor's housing policy staff there in Hawaii and others are looking, well, if we have no standard, then we have blight and we have something that deteriorates. We have an unknown quantity. It is a little bit surprising that this wouldn't be under LNI factory assembled structures. And if you're exempting it from code, why are you doing it? It's actually a living dwelling structure that should be in some way have state specific types of requirements for the uniformity. Now, to leave this bill then say subject to incorporated towns or fire safety, would they be using ICC BMI standards 1200 and 1205, which deal with off-site built structures in a factory? And that might very well be something that the local governments certainly choose to adopt. We've approached L&I to incorporate that into their L&I rules. But I will say this, then if you do have requirements, and if the locals do adopt standard 1200 and 1205, then some of the types of things that will come into the local jurisdiction will be of a regulation type that you could say is covered by the state building code council. And then would it be required for the local government to then have to come to the state and say, you know, this affects the under RCW 19.27031 and 074, there's elements that we have to come and get permission by the state building code council to do that. And that this bill kind of leads you into a disconnected, well, what happens, what's the regulatory cycle, what's required, and so this will add some confusion without the clarity of what is the standard that they need to meet.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I'm hearing about this for the first time today. Ray, go ahead.
Yeah, so would, just thinking outside the box, would a manufactured home be considered kit home if they start building them under 800 square feet?
No, it's see this the definition at least wasn't intent for the intent wasn't for manufactured homes, but reading the definition, it's really not clear enough.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's the language is, it's basically that second bullet point is the bill.
Yeah, it's a short bill.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Ray on that, Ray Shipman on the question. It would seem by the definition that if it's constructed in a factory and it's under 800 square feet, it meets the requirement as a kit home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Interesting. Okay, we'll see where this goes. What do you have next on your list?
I think, okay, 6120. 6120. Come on. Coming.
Looks like 6120 passed unanimously.
Yep.
And I think the big effect of this bill is that it redoes the maps, or it directs the maps redone, or did it give that control to the locals?
Yes, so that was added, which was a big concern, who will do the map. Well, now it requires the Department of Natural Resources to do that, which fixes one of the problems. The other one, Micah's concern was, you can't enforce that. So now the language adds chapter 1, I think, from chapter 1 of WE. And the only unanswered question for me is what the council is going to do with the WE code that we are amending right now and that we'll have hearing tomorrow.
Micah?
I guess it's great that this is passed. This is not one I'm going to die on here, even though I disagree with it. It's creating a new map. It's replacing the old one and creating a new one. Actually, there's two maps, a hazard map and a risk map, from what I understand with the new legislation. And it's going to set criteria by which these maps are developed. So the cities and towns and counties, they can't just go out and do whatever they want. They have to follow. I mean, it's the same thing we did last time. They can't go out and do whatever they want. They're going to have to follow a process. However, the criteria will now be set by the Department of Natural Resources with input from the State Fire Marshal's office. That's what Section 3 says right here, kind of right below where Stoyan has it highlighted. So it's going to create a map, and there's going to be criteria that those maps are created under. So when a city goes to, or a town or jurisdiction goes to create their own map, they have to use that same criteria. So I highly doubt that they're going to spend much time on these maps. They're just going to go with what DNR has because they have to use the same criteria. So I don't foresee them coming up with something significantly different. But that we'll have to see on that. But my understanding is the way this legislation reads is it pretty much does away with whatever we have done for the 2021 WUI code. I thought that was my computer for a second, Stoyan.
No,
Saying the battery was low. I'm like, oh, check my cord. That way it kind of like, oh, it's yours. It's all good.
I checked my part too.
Yeah, everybody's looking at their cords. I'm like, oh my gosh. That was pretty funny. But again, I this is obviously going to fly through, I think, but that's my understanding is without a map, this says you can't use certain portions. One of the big concerns I've had with this that I think really affects the SBCC is this legislation takes away the council's ability to adopt or further amend the WUI code in any way, shape, or form. It says that we can only use those portions in this legislation. Now, it does allow for jurisdictions to adopt the entire WUI code or portions of it. But what this does not allow is for jurisdictions to amend the WUI code. And again, we've gotten this, I believe, a clarification from the Attorney General's office that represents us from DIRC, because I've asked this before on this, is that means that if a jurisdiction wants to amend the WUI code beyond what is in the model codes, they would have to get approval through the SBCC based on another RCW. And that was an answer of yes by the Attorney General's office. So again, a jurisdiction can adopt the entire WUI code. They can amend it how they see fit or want to. And this, of course, legislation makes it to where the SBCC cannot amend the WUI code at all. That is highly unusual. So if this is a precedent that is going to be set, they may do that for other codes as well. I again, just pointing out some concerns. I have no issue with this. It's going to eliminate about a third of the state from having to do any WUI code. So wonderful, including my jurisdiction, is my understanding. If I've looked at, since I've looked at other maps, FEMA puts one out. You can go and look at theirs currently. So does wildfirerisk.org. They put out a risk map. It's going to eliminate a lot of the state. However, I mentioned this as well. It's going to include other parts of the state that may have been excluded. In other words, if you had a metropolitan area of a jurisdiction that was, say, a gray color on the current map, they would not have to provide WUI. Now, if that region has a great high risk classification, they've got no way to mitigate that any other way than do the structure hardening. So it's going to let a few people out of it. It's going to capture a lot more once that map goes into place. But my understanding is the current WUI code will go away if this goes into effect, because there's no map to base those regulations on. And if you all are not aware, the last map took about 2.5 years to complete from DNR. So that's my understanding. Thanks.
Just to follow up on what you said, Micah, didn't that horse kind of get out of the barn already in terms of we had to take the model code and meld it with legislation because they put a specific language in, and now they've just done that further? Is that what you're saying?
No, they have not done that further. You will still have to do the structure hardening of the legislation, even if you adopt the entire code.
Okay.
So that's my understanding. Again, I don't think this fixes much, but it'll get a new map.
Gotcha.
But it's going to fly through. So there you have it.
There you go, Tom.
Yeah, my question, still is with this, when I read it, I don't see what people are going to be able to do now should this pass now, if the counties and cities don't already have a map to use. It seems like there's a no man's land there.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was pretty general agreement that the DNR map was pretty broad. It just encompassed a lot of areas.
But if there's nothing adopted anywhere, then there's nothing, because this eliminates it from.
Until a new map is produced, yes.
So that's I'm kind of lost there.
Ken?
Is there a problem with them still referencing the 2018 edition in here? Nobody's changed that.
Interesting question.
Well, that for sure would wipe out whatever we're proposing right now.
I would presume that, I mean, if it's not specifically addressed, the 2018 would still be in effect.
I thought the old language had it reverting back to 2018. But I didn't notice that when I reread the striker.
And
I don't, the striker deletes 2018.
interesting. And there is an emergency clause in this.
And there is an emergency. This is why I said I mean, it was unclear to me, should we delete whatever was adopted and leave it without anything? I wasn't sure what the intent was.
I believe the legislation would trump what we have adopted.
Think so
So if
too.
there's no map to enforce these regulations against, then there's no regulations to enforce until the map is complete.
Right.
So if we want to adopt the amendments to the WE code, we have to do it prior to March 15, and the session ends on March 7, so we may end up adopting the amendments to the WE code and then within a week or so delete the amendments from the WE code.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like.
Okay.
Or we can vote to table. Sorry, I'll throw that out there.
Ooh, okay, Ray.
Yeah, we're coming down to a tight wire on this. We're having a problem because it's not getting adopted. Or I appreciate the public hearing and all that stuff, but for us to implement it, we have to run it through a resolution, which goes through 2 readings. I'm not going to get my resolution approved by the time that this gets implemented. So if there's any way of expediting any portion of this for us would be helpful. I know that the Building Code Council is working on a tight timeline, but we are too. We have to have 2 readings of a resolution, and that's 2 months, and we're going to be way past March by then. So just a thought.
Well, and again, I don't think we know what the universe looks like until after the 15th. So cool. Okay. Stoyan, was there any other hot items on your list?
No, that was the last one, and you can see it's kind of burning.
Yeah. Yes. That's no pun intended. Okay. I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate people jumping on and giving input here, even though we can't take any official action today. Hopefully when the dust settles, we'll all look great. So I go ahead and conclude the meeting. Unless anybody has anything else to add? Okay, thank you guys. Thank you for showing up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for being chair.
You bet.